Hey guys, welcome back to Pre-Calc 12 Function Transformations. In Chapter 1.3 we're going to be combining all the transformations that we've learned from the previous sections. The learning targets for this 1.3 is that we're going to add the whole formula together with the values for A, B, H, and K, and by the end of this you should be able to write equations for every given transformation. Before we get onto this slide, we'll just do a basic review. We know that our A value shows the vertical expansion or compression, which means it gets taller or shorter. Our B value tells the horizontal expansion or compression, which tells if it gets wider or skinnier. And A and B, if it's a negative A, then you reflect it over the x-axis. If it's a negative B, you reflect it over the y-axis. And then the H value tells whether to go left or right, and your K value tells whether to go up or down. And when you have two or more transformations, you only follow one rule. You would go from left to right when you solve, which means you have to do your A and B values first and then do your translations last. So here we are starting off with the point 5 and negative 2, and we have a series of transformations that occur to it, and we have to figure out what the final point is. So let's get started. First we reflect it over the x-axis, and we get a point of 5 and 2. That's because when you reflect over the x-axis, your y value is switched, so from negative 2 it goes to positive 2. When you compress it vertically by a factor of a half, we have a point 5 and negative 1. That's because when you compress it vertically, you're just making it shorter, which means your y value has to be divided by 2, and hence we get 1. Now we're expanding it horizontally by a factor of 5, and it gives us 25 and 1. Well, all that means is you're just making it wider by a factor of 5, so 5 times 5 gives us 25. And then we translated 4 units to the right, which gives us 29 and 1 because you add 4 to your original 25 to make it 29. And finally, we are translating it 5 units down, which means you subtract 5 from 1, which gives us a final value of 29 and negative 4. For this graph, we have our original y equals f of x, and they've given us a list of transformations that we have to do. And so I'll show you the graph first, and I'll explain why we have those points. That should be the new graph, and the colored dots represent the new points. So let's start off with the black dot. First, you have a vertical compression by a factor of a third, which means your y value, which is 1, is you have to multiply that by 1/3, which comes down to a decimal point. And then you have a horizontal compression by a factor of 2, which means it gets skinnier. So since it has an x value of 2, it comes into 1. And then you add 1 because you're translating it 1 unit up. And then you end up over there. And then if you do the same transformations to the other points, that's how you should end up with your blue over there and your green over there. And once you have your points, you just connect the dots and you should be good to go. This is our second example over here. I'll just show you the new drawing. That's what it looks like. For this graph, I'll just tell you what the transformations are. The negative sign represents that there is a reflection over the x-axis, which means all your y points are reversed. The 2 value for A tells us that it's going to be vertically expanded by a factor of 2, which means it gets twice as taller. The half value for B tells us that it's going to get wider by a factor of 2. And the x plus 2 tells us that it has to move to the left, too. Remember that with the H value, if it's x plus 2, you have to move to the left, and if it's x minus 2, then you have to move it to the right. For this question, we have to do a change first. We have to factor out whatever's inside because we want it to the x, not to the 2x. So when you factor it out, it comes out to f of 2x plus 3 plus 1. Now this gives us a clear indication of our value for b, which is 2, and our h value, which is 3. So now I'll show you the points for this graph. That should be your new graph, how it looks, and I'll tell you the transformations that have occurred to it. The 2 value for B means that it's horizontally compressed by a factor of 2, which means it gets skinnier. The plus 3 tells that the graph has moved to the left 3 units, and the plus 1 for the K tells us that the graph has moved up 1. And that's it for combining transformations.